Games I've Played and the People I've Played Them With, by Nathan Good. On hot, sticky summer days, the ideas would come at them so relentlessly that they often ended up getting things confused. He would be crouching down on the living room floor, trying to balance the pickup sticks in the little grooves on the dominoes. She would be rolling die across the kitchen linoleum and yelling the numbers through the doorway. "What was that?" he would ask. "5," she would shout back. "It was a 5." He would grab 5 of the sticks, or the single stick 5 places from the end, or he would turn 2 of the dominoes to face each other so that the dots added to 5. "What am I doing?" he would call, and she would appear at the doorway to clarify the rules. Once, when the grandchildren arrived for a Sunday afternoon barbecue, they found the 2 of them bouncing footballs against the garage. He had woken up early with the idea solid and unshakable in his head. Quietly, he unlocked the back door and paced half naked across the garden to the shed. The patio was cold beneath his bare feet. He took a can of red spray paint from a forgotten drawer in his workbench and back outside used it to draw circular targets in various sizes up and down the folding garage door. He collected the footballs from the games cupboard under the stairs and woke her gently by pulling on her hand and asking her to come and look. Still in their dressing gowns and pyjama bottoms hours later, they were surprised to see the grandchildren emerging from the side gate into the garden. They watched each other for a while, old and young alike, desperate for a glimpse of what the other was thinking. "What are you playing at, Nan?" said the youngest. "Just a new game we thought of this morning. How about you give it a go?" She threw the football in the direction, letting it bounce once between them. It was harder to think of anything at all during the colder seasons. He drank more in the winter, preferring to sit in the warm of the living room nursing a whiskey than to be out and active. She responded by taking up painting again. She chose to sit in the conservatory, where the drumming of raindrops on the glass roof sounded like the feet of 1,000 marching soldiers. The noise made it impossible to think of anything other than the task in hand, the mixing of acrylics and watercolours, the shading of a tree branch. He would stand behind her sometimes, swaying a little if it were late in the day, and watch her working. "I forgot how good you were," he would tell her every time. "You're drunk," she laughed. "Can't argue with that." In the winter, if they thought about playing games at all, it was about the games that they had played in the past and not the invention of new ones. "Did you ever play Battleships?" she asked. They were sitting in the pub at the end of their road. It was homely and relaxing. They both enjoyed the open fire and the real ale. He ripped a bag of crisps open along the seam and flattened the packet between them. They picked at the small mound together, their hands darting backwards and forwards like the beaks of birds. "Battleships," he said, sounding confused. "Remind me of that." "Well, you have these boards and both have a certain amount of boats, big ones and little ones." "Boats? Wait, you have boats? When have you played this? You grew up in the city." "Not real boats. You don't play it with real boats." "What then? Plastic boats? Little boats?" "Paper boats." "Like this," he said, and began to fold the flattened crisp packet into an origami boat. His fingers worked quickly, and she waited for him to finish. He pushed the boat across the table at her, and it floated a little and spilled beer. "No," she said, "you play it on paper, with a pencil, but you can't look at each other's, that's cheating." "Oh." He was interested in battleships. They loved to teach each other new games. "Wait a minute." She was staring past his shoulder, her eyes seeing only an old Battleships game board. maybe you can play it with real boats. What's the objective, he said. Of the game? Of battleships? It's like war, she said. He came home one afternoon to find the living room floor covered in multicoloured plastic balls. She was wading through them, knee-deep by the television. They bounced and rippled as she moved, sometimes popping upwards like the whole floor was a pan of boiling water. New game, he asked. Find the cat, she said. An invitation and an instruction. He pulled off his coat and waded out into the pit of balls. Where did she get them from, he thought, but did not ask. Instead, he made a high-pitched sound by pursing his lips and breathing in through his teeth. Somewhere from within the lounge came a muffled and bewildered meow. He used to want to write books. He had 1,000,001 ideas and had started to formulate them countless times. He would sit in the garden with a notebook and write chapter 1 to 1,000 different novels. Later, he would think of just placing them all together in no particular order and sending the whole mess out to every publisher he could find. It would be a statement to the eternal struggle, a dictionary of the unfinished and the world's best intentions. But as they watched their friends and their children grow older, he rarely found the time. Instead, he opened the games cupboard and sorted through the boxes. Lego, pool balls, chess pieces, drafts, dice, dominoes, 100 ways to entertain themselves. More games than they can possibly play in the time they have left. Often now she has to spend her nights away from him, in a bright room with a vase of flowers and a stack of beeping machinery. On those nights he cannot sleep and drinks too much. Sometimes it is 2 in the morning before he takes himself from the living room and walks across to the bedroom. He will deal with the empty bottles in the morning. He will turn the television off in the morning. He will also collect the stack of playing cards that he has thrown across the room in frustration after failing to win even a single round of solitaire. We have to hurry, she says. You need to rest. There will be no hurrying with anything until you are better. He takes her hand and holds the side of it that does not have tubes protruding from her loose skin. I want to invent a game. Her eyes are milky. The hospital lights swim across their hazy surfaces. I want to invent the greatest game there ever was. People will talk about us as gods. The king and queen of leisure. The lord and lady of downtime. We will, he says. I promise we will. She falls asleep for a while, and he takes the time to remove the crumbs from her blanket. He does it slowly, his hands shaking. When she speaks again, she makes him jump. Is it sunny out today? He moves around the bed, trying not to show her how painful he finds it to walk, how his knees feel full of drawing pins and sandpaper. When he opens the blinds, the sun falls across the bed in horizontal stripes. Oh, it's lovely. He watches her pupils shrink and knows what she is going to say. Take me outside. Can I? He asks, nodding to the tubes and the machines that are stacked up next to her. They can come too. It takes them a while to move her into the wheelchair and untangle the wires from around her back. The IV moves easily, though, and she is happy to drag it along behind her as he pushes her into the hallway. They look left and right for nurses, but the hospital seems empty, the only noises coming from behind closed doors. "Level 1, she says. "Don't get caught." They choose a direction and begin to move towards the lift at the end of the corridor. When they are only halfway there, just past the nurses' station, the lift makes a noise and the doors begin to close. "Go!" she shouts, and they laugh as he races towards the narrowing gap. She wedges the metal pole from the IV into the space between the doors just before they close completely. On the way to the roof, he bends down and kisses her very fully on the mouth. She kisses back like a teenager. The lift doors do not open directly on the roof, and they almost get lost trying to navigate a series of small rooms and concrete landings before he pushes open a fire door to find the outside. The sun is still shining, but the wind whips through her hospital gown like daggers. She doesn't seem to mind, though. She points onwards with her free hand, like the captain of a ship. "To the edge! Full steam ahead!" He wheels her there, and when she asks for his help, he puts his arms around her and pulls her to her feet. They stand soundlessly for a while, looking at the car park below and the field beyond. Bodies no bigger than specks of dirt sunbathe on the grass or scurry backwards and forwards to their cars. "I've never been up this high," he says, "apart from flying." "I spy, with my little eye, something beginning with C." She looks up at him for an answer.
Car?
"Correct. Your turn." He picks something. Then she does. Then he finds a piece of chipped gravel and uses it to sketch out a noughts and crosses grid on the side of the stairwell wall. They stand together and hold each other up against the wind until it is beginning to get dark. They play every game they can think of.